and gentlemen, Abarizing, and a very good afternoon. First, I just want to thank all the organizers involved in hosting and bringing together youth and other stakeholders in peace and security work to the first of its kind conference through the Wajibu Wetu program under the theme Enhancing Creativity and Innovation in Countering Violent Extremism. Personally, I'm very glad to be part of it and to be part of the civic movement that is fused with art and culture with the aim to showcase and reflect on the effectiveness and explore new approaches on how to better prevent and counter violent extremism. This way, we are able to educate communities about the threat of recruitment and radicalization of violence, which is commendable. There are tens of thousands of victims, of course, of violent extremism, and as you know, Kenya has suffered attacks that shock with the disregard of human life. The trauma caused lasting damage of individuals, families, and communities, and the threat of violent extremism in the country is spreading and destabilizing with numerous incidents linking to extremist groups. As you know, according to the government's national strategy to counter violent extremism, there have been numerous fatalities and the impact and the cost of insecurity resulting from violent extremism in the world and in the risk of Kenya's development agenda. Following the launch of the strategy by His Excellency the President, the government has demonstrated leadership and political will for the formation of the National Task Force that is aimed at ensuring that all relevant ministries, departments, and agencies act with their mandates. This will undertake coordinated efforts to prevent and counter violent extremism. And in line with delivering, as one seeks to work jointly through our respective mandates to achieve the overarching goal to strengthen the development pathways to livelihoods, strengthen community resilience, and disrupt the opportunities of radicalization and violent extremism. Ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow youths, the development of the Kenyan National Strategy to counter violent extremism and the Kenyan Youth Development Policy means we have a clear framework and solid platform to our youth to work in promoting a crime-free, secure, peaceful, and united Kenya and supporting security for peace-building processes, particularly when it comes to curbing the violent extremism and radicalization movement. The government has prioritized capacity-building projects such as Kazi Mtaani, Kenya Youth Employment Opportunities, KEO, on issues to mitigate the threat of extremism, empowering and engaging youth, countering extremism, financing, and improving the security. There is more we can do, and I look forward to learning new approaches. And in all our efforts, let us not forget to fully engage youth who play multiple roles in relation to violent extremism and prevention, as victims, as those recruited, and as those who are radicalized, but more important as influencers and leaders and prevention and agents of peace. The meaningful inclusion and engagement of youth will also strengthen our responses. I am glad that the organizers of this conference and festival consider practical, innovative ways to harness the creativity, the energy, and the power of young people to strengthen resilience against violent extremism and build more peaceful, just, and inclusive communities. I'm happy that Kenyans continue to show courage and resilience in challenging those who seek to spread violence and hatred, from working within their families to communities to prevention of the spread of radicalized and recruitment. As you know, the determination of the Kenyan government is to find solutions to source and to surge the violent extremism is clear, and the role of the youth is inspirational in so many ways. The experiences tell us radicalization, terrorism, and conflict cannot be resolved through enforcement alone. Youth are taking matters into their own hands, rebuilding us, reminding us that Kenya remains in our way. They are engaging with local leaders and their peers to fight against exclusion, marginalization, inequality, and abuse. The conditions that lead many to radicalized and conflict. Coast region is increasingly at the front line in the national against violent extremism. So I'm delighted to be virtually here to demonstrate our full support for aims of this conference. Secondly, I hope this conference will underline the continuing need to address the drivers and enablers of violent extremism. Nothing can justify violent extremism, but we must also acknowledge that they do not rise in a vacuum. There is need to be a renewed and sustained focus on prevention, including addressing the underlying conditions that cause young men and women to lower into such acts. This includes preventing and addressing grievances and conflicts, strengthening institutions and civil society, building durable peace and promoting sustainable development to tackle the poverty, inequality, and lack of opportunity that feed despair. And it is also important that the civil society organizations are supported to deliver tailored programs to strengthen community resilience and turn vulnerable individuals away from violence. I'm delighted to see so many civil society representation here today who have uniquely knowledge and access to their communities across the region. Ladies and gentlemen, our peaceful coexistence as communities is paramount to development and such. The government remains fully committed to support the prevention of violent extremism in Kenya and working with all of you to address the evolving threat of violent extremism and help build a more secure and prosperous future that all Kenyans deserve. I wish you a productive conference, and especially I look forward to hearing more as I have been tuning in and to see the perspectives of the different individuals through this conference on how to deal better and reverse violent extremism trends and restore peace and security in the country. As you know, let us remember, Kenya ni mimi na wewe. So juhudi yetu pamoja ndio ambalo litaleta mambo mazuri katika jamii zetu, ndio ambalo litaleta development ambazo zitakuja kusaidia watoto wetu na wajukuu zetu na wengineo. Violent extremism, radicalization, terrorism is something that as young people, if we unite, if we are intentional, and if we focus on sustainable approaches that we can do together, we can eliminate it, we can build on it, and we can make sure that we build a better Kenya for ourselves. Na hii kitu ya kusema kuwa tumekuwa marginalized, tumekuwa segregated na nini. Mimi mkiniona hapa ni mtoto wa kutoka pwani. Nimezaliwa Mombasa, Old Town, na nimelelewa na kuwa huko. Leo hii niko katika national government. Na leo hii ninaunga mkono kuendelea na mambo ya radicalization na kufanya iwezavyo ili tuweze kusimamisha hatari hizi zote na pamoja tuweze kujenga nchi yetu. Kenya ni mimi na Kenya ni wewe, na tukiwacha tutaipoteza. Kwa hivyo pamoja tushikane mikono, pamoja na civil society, pamoja na organizations zote, pamoja na serikali kuu, pamoja na county, ili tuweze kuleta mabadiliko. Asante.
Thank you. Asante sana Ms. Nadia, asante sana kwa maneno yako kuntu, maneno ambayo bila shaka kila mmoja hapa ameweza kuyasikia na muingia kamilifu. Lakini moja kabla uondoke, pengine katika mchakato mzima, wewe kama dada wa Pwani, umelelewa hapa Pwani, pengine katika hali ya kutoa watu taka masikio na vijana ambao wanasema pengine huko juu serikalini ni kugumu, je, wewe unapasaidia vipi katika challenges wanaume katika safu, masuala ya competition, kwa sababu unajua kama tunasikia swala la two-third gender rule iweze kuingia katika bunge. Wewe kama dada unaona je, tunafikia malengo yale ama kuna changamoto zaidi mpaka tuweze kupiga nguvu zaidi? Naam.
Asante. Kwa kweli yake kwa changamoto ziko, na kama serikali kuu tunajitahidi sana ili tuweze kufikisha ile two-third gender rule. Lakini mimi huwa niko na one goal that I usually say. Na hii ni kuwa sisi kama wanawake kwanza lazima we have clear intentions of what it is we are doing. Tunapigania nafasi ziwe zaidi ama tunapigania sisi kwa binafsi? Wajua, sasa ikiwa tutapigana as a collective ili nafasi ziwe zaidi, basi pia the other gender or even other people will see ni vitu gani ambavyo lazima tujirekebishe. Lakini ikiwa sisi wenyewe kama wanawake leo unafanya hivi, unamwona mwenzako na unataka kumsupport, ama ukinyang'anyana ni kwa kutoka kwani na mdogo unataka kumsupport, basi hatuwezi, hiyo mara tutapotea kabisa. Kwa hivyo mimi naona juhudi zinafanywa, na kama unaweka mimi katika position hii, kwanza na unaongea kwa niko below that, kisha kutoka cost, kisha ni kwa hivyo hii naona kwa juhudi ya president kufanya mambo ya inclusion na pia kujipa moyo zaidi ili aweze kuattain ile tuta agenda. But it is up to us. How are we going to do it? And then nikiongea na vijana. Wajua vijana sana sana umezoea, na hata mimi mwenyewe I was like that once. Tumezoea sana kila kitu lazima tupewe. Kila kitu hata tukifanya kitu leo lazima kifanyike hapo hapo. Wajua hatuna ile utulivu ama hatuna ile time kuangalia vipi huyu anafanya nini, lazima na sisi tutie nguvu zaidi. Ushaelewa? So mimi saa yote nikiwa niko kwa ground huwa nawaambia vijana. Naambia vijana kwa lazima mjikakamue. Wajua hakuna mtu ambaye anakuletea opportunity. Take an example, Cve Festival. It's a unique festival. Ni mambo ya innovation, mambo ya music, ni mambo ya arts, ni mambo ya culture, but at the same time ni mambo ambayo yanaleta suluhisho ili tuweze kutatua hili jambo la radicalization na violent extremism. So what do we have to do as young people? As young people, we have to take it upon ourselves to be na tuseme hatutongojea mtu mwingine atupatie kitu ama tupe solution. Tutafanya vipi? Tutaangalia vile yale miradi na mikakati ambayo yapo, alafu tutakaa pamoja united. And I talk about unity a lot to young people. Vijana tuko united. Tukiwa united na tukiangalia ni lengo gani ambalo tutaka kuachieve, kisha tunaweza kuachieve as one. Because vijana lazima waelewe ni 75.1%. That is a very huge number. But a lot of times the issue comes in all opportunities haziko. Ni mara nyingi nimekuja nyumbani, nimefanya kazi na Swahili kwa kuna vijana wengine wanakuja kwangu wananiuliza kama nifanye hivi nifanye hivi, na waonyesha opportunities ambazo ziko, alafu wanajiendeleza. Lakini kuna vijana wengine ambao hawataki, na kuna wanawake wengine hawataki kuungana pamoja. Tukiungana pamoja kama wanawake na kama vijana, there's a lot of transformative, sustainable initiatives and programs that can grow from there.
Now,
so the key word is transformative, sustainable solutions, because we're looking for a solution not for today. So it's the same thing with the gender role. What is the sustainable solution to have women occupy seats? We're not fighting so that Nadia can sit there. We're fighting so that Nadia and others, 10 of them, in the future can also sit there.
Naam, sasa ukikamilisha kama tukupe nafasi uende, nataka uzungumze watu wengi wanakufuatilia sasa hivi. Nataka uzungumze na wale akina dada ambao wamekufa moyo kabisa, wanaona kwamba haviwezekani. Wamejaribu kujinasua, haviwezekani. Wengine ikina mama ambao watoto wao walipotea wakaingia katika makundi mabaya, hawajawaona. Wengine ni wale ambao walipotezewa ndugu zao, hawajaona mpaka wale wana majonzi. Wape tu maneno ya busara, maneno ya kupatia moyo. Wanakuangalia, ulimwengu unaangalia sasa hivi. Naam.
Mimi naambia tu yani, of course ma challenges na kufa moyo ni kitu kawaida katika dunia. Wajua mimi nasema hivi, Mwenyezi Mungu huwa anapanga mipango yake. Hatuwezi kujua leo uko hivi, kesho uko vile. Leo mtoto wako yuko, kesho amejiunga na grupu ambayo ni mbaya. Kwa hivyo wewe kama mzazi ama wewe kama mama, kwanza acha niseme hivyo, lazima usife moyo. Inauma, yes, lakini usife moyo. Manake there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. Katika jambo lolote ambalo limekufikia, lazima uangalie kwa sawa hichi ndio kimefanyika. Sijaona mtoto wangu amefanya nitafanya nini? Ama sitaki tena kuishi maishani, ama sitaki nikaze moyo tu, manake huwezi kujua kesho ukiamka siku yako itakuwa vipi, ama huwezi kujua vipi siku zingine zikiamka. Kisha kuna hizi civil society organizations ambazo kuna zile ambazo zinatoa psychosocial support. Kuna zile ambazo pia zinasaidia na miradi ambayo inaweza kutia moyo kina mama ama kina dada. Nenda uliza kuhusu vitu, ungana na vikundi ambavyo pia wengine wamepitia mambo haya yote, kisha ukae na wao. Wajua saa nyingine ukiwa katika hizi grupu ambazo za watu ambao wanasema issue na wewe, zinasaidia sana na zitakuendeleza mbele. Kama mimi pia nimepoteza mamangu juu, niko na watu ambao wapo wamepoteza wazazi wao, so vipi nimejisaidia, wamezungumza na mimi, wamenitia moyo, nikasema lazima niendelee. Maana siwezi leo nikakatiza maisha yangu nikasema siwezi tena kufanya hivi ama hivi kwa ajili ya mtoto wangu kwa hapa na kudai. Kwa hivyo kuna mambo mengi, tafsiri miradi, fanyeni. Ukiona labda unaweza kufanya kikao ama kile mtoto wako ambaye alipoteza ama unaona mambo yanakwenda vibaya, angalia kitu unachoweza kufanya. Kama government uko na affirmative funds, county pia wako na programs na organization, developing partners. Kisha kwa yule msichana mdogo ambaye tuseme anamwangalia Mungu, ama yule mvulana pia tuseme, unapomwambia kitu kimoja, mimi sikuamka siku moja nikawa hivi, ama mimi sikuamka siku moja nikawa najua kila kitu, mpaka leo mimi sijui kila kitu, mpaka leo mimi nikikaa lazima nampigia cabinet secretary wangu kila siku namuuliza hivi unafanya vipi, suluhisho ya hili nini, suluhisho ya hili nini. Kama vijana, kama wasichana na kama wavulana, lazima tuwe na mtu ambaye anaweza kutufunza vitu kisawasawa kwa utaratibu. Mentor pia mbona jole wa watu wengi wao kwa siku vitu naona havieni kabisa na zungumza na kabla sijakuwa CS kwa yeye pia nilimsaidia. Alinipa nafasi ya kusaidia kwa nafanya training za public speaking. Vijana wengine wakaona si kitu cha maana nafanya, wale ambao wanafanya nini mpaka leo nazungumza nao wanasema wao waanza kusema wajue CS mwingine alikuwa akija kunifundisha. Kwa hivyo kama kijana usife moyo sana kabisa, because challenges are there. You have to believe in yourself. Kuwa na confidence, jiamini, alafu jipe moyo. Usione mtu mwingine ukamwonea wivu ukasema huyu ashafika hivi mimi sitafika hivi. Lazima if Nadia, a coast girl today, is sitting on a table in national government, you who are listening to me, there is nothing that can stop you. Lakini lazima you know what you want to achieve in life. As a young person, whether it's in arts, whether it's in creativity, always when we are more, na ninajitahidi sana, lakini pia napiga mkono huko na kule, kwa ajili hakuna support. So let's synergize. Ikiwa unaona kuna opportunity, nenda kwa officers wetu wa national government, nenda kwa officers wa county, nenda kwa civil societies, nenda kwa organizations. As young people, you have the power to do anything as long as you believe in yourself. Alafu, usiogope kuzungumza. If you have an opportunity, speak. Let yourself be heard. Because change comes from within. And once you believe in yourself and you believe in who you are, you will make a difference. Na kila siku naongea vijana na kina mama na Kenya. Kenya ni mimi na wewe. Ukiacha Kenya ipelekwe rapsha, basi na wewe ni rapsha. So the decision is yours. You're in a festival today. Network. Tumia hiyo opportunity. Kana watu wa haki Afrika, kana watu wa organization zingine, kana mtu wa director Miss Esther yuko hapo, wa jana, kana naye, angalia miradi gani yuko hapo. So hapo ni nini? Na sitaki kusema sana, maana naweza sema mpaka kesho. But that's all I can say.
Thank you, Kasnadia. We salute you. We really missed you down here. We wish you were here. But again, the part you have picked key messages kama umepatikana katika hali ya depression na kuna trauma, you look for support groups. Vijana watafute mentorship, watafute mentors as a key message to young people. Na pia utafanya self awareness, kuweza kujitambua ni nini hasa unataka kuachieve. Thank you so much for the great messages for the young people today. Tunajua watu wanapenda kuuliza maswali hapa, lakini kwa sababu ya wakati itabidi tuweze kuendelea, because still have another panel to come on stage, and also a pool of young people who have come here prepared to come and perform on this particular stage. So we really want to release you now. Asante sana, it has been amazing and great engaging you. Tupigie makofi tafadhali kasi. Unasikia makofi hayo? Sisi kama unawaona, makofi na jamani, tunakupenda sana. Thank you so much. Asante sana. Asante.
Tumeita watu wengi. Yusuf Abubakar kutoka Haki Afrika tumeita, kina Nicholas Songora kutoka Manyata, tumeita watu wengi, kina mashirika tofauti. Na kila leo tunapoweza kujadili yetu kama media kwa radio, letu ni kuongea. Lakini kwa vile kijana ipo changamoto katika utekelezaji ama implementation. Vijana ndio tunasoma, lakini tunashindwa kufanya ule mchakato wa kufanya implementation, kusikiza yale maneno na kuyafanyia kazi. Mashirika yanakuja yanaongea. Mchango wetu kama idara ya Salam sisi ni kuleta wale waliobobea kinahuria wapi waje tujadili, lakini yule kijana ndio ni mdau mkuu wa kutekeleza. Changamoto iko wapi? Kwa sababu mimi napenda kuongelea jambo, tuangalie changamoto na jinsi gani tutaweza kusolve. Changamoto kubwa ni self control, imekosekana kwetu kama vijana. Self control inatufanya sisi vijana tunaendelea tu kuelekeza ujinga, tunaendelea kufanya mambo kana kwamba hatuna akili, tunaendelea kupuuza. Lakini siku hii leo nataka kueleza kuwa uzuri wa jamii, heshima ya jamii, tukiangalia nguvu za jamii na tukiangalia masuala ya maendeleo ya jamii, yote yanamtegemea kijana. Sasa tujiulizeni maswali, tumepokea wapi sisi kama vijana? Asilimia yetu kubwa tulionayo, lakini bado kama ya pwani tuko nyuma. Je, ni wapi tumepakosea? Na kila leo katika midahalo, sio ya social media, sio mainstream media, tunaongelea swala la itikadi kali, lakini kwa nini hatujaweza kufuata yale ambayo tunaambiwa? Lakini nimeweza kufahamu kuwa social ama agent of socialization is also a problem. Kitabu nilikuwa tukilelewa katika hoja pana ya kuwa tunaenda madarasa, for example tunaenda katika mikahawa tofauti tukieleza mambo mengi matatu. Lakini nowadays jamii, wazazi wameachilia watoto hivi. Agent of socialization ni televisheni, ni ma YouTube kama nilivyosema, baadhi ma social media. Lakini je, tunayafanyia kazi vipi? Sisi tunafanyia kazi katika negativity, na ndiposa bado tunaharibikiwa. Hatujafanyia kazi katika positivity ili tuweze kuneemekewa. Kwa hivyo kwanza tu katika swala lako ambalo umeniuliza, nataka kumsisitizia huyu kijana, sisi letu ni kuongea, kwako ni kuimplement wewe kama kijana, kufuata ushauri kama ule ambao tumeleta wadau tofauti, lakini wewe mwenyewe ndio utakiwa yule ambaye ataweza kuchukua jukumu kama ile kubadilisha maisha yake binafsi.
That's a big challenge. Hapo tuna changamoto kubwa sana inaweza kutuwekea pale. Let's move on to Mahmoud Noor, who is the founder of Swahili Pot. The founder. When Mahmoud, let's talk about Swahili Pot. This is a home of talent. So how are you using the talent in here to link with CVE?
I think from I just want to thank everybody for this opportunity. But for Swahili Pot, which is a home of creatives, both technology and arts, it plays a big role, especially for young people, because when you're talking about violent extremism or juvenile gang, a majority are actually young people. And I think for us at Swahili Pot, what we are doing is to give them a platform where we can give them certain skills, we can give them opportunities, because if you create livelihoods for young people, then you will actually not allow them to be misused. Because when you give somebody power, either and especially when through giving them a livelihood, because that is what we are doing here at Swahili Pot Hub. But I did not want to also leave out the technology bit, because at Swahili Pot we are also known as a home of technology. And technology can be harnessed in a positive way. It has also been used to even recruit members or young people who cross the border or go to Afghanistan. So I think technology in itself can be used as a tool for development, but it can also be used as a tool for distraction. So what is important for us is how do we show young people that technology can actually be used positively? And then also, how do we also train the same young people not to be lured? Because at times when you go to certain websites or when you go to certain Facebook pages or social media, they can easily be lured into the wrong path. So I think for us also one responsibility that we have is how do we tell our young people to look at certain red flags. For example, in a particular website, when you see certain things, can you run away from it? Or can you report it? Or can you share it with your parent or a guardian? So I think because for us technology is very important, but technology, if not used properly, it can be used in a negative way to harm the country. And lastly, from the whole morning, I think we've seen how art can be used to set certain narratives or to tell certain stories. And I think for us at Swahili Pot and other organizations like Manyata, like Kwacha Africa, we are using art to tell a certain story or create a certain narrative, because also it is the narratives that mislead young people. But if we give them the right message through art, today we were together with the Kenya Film Commission here. So how do we harness the power of all these partners so that we use art to send the right message about Kenya and also the right message to the audience who are the young people?
Yeah. We've heard about the technology. Are we aware that this media we use to post our pictures, to do everything and highlight, are actually the main thing we've used to actually explore more and fight violent extremism? Thank you. We have a man who actually resides in art, who always goes about painting or writing in another way. A person who always writes the newspaper magazine, draws cartoons, which we find funny, is none other than Gado. Gado, thank you very much for coming. Could you highlight for us the importance, or what is it that leads to violent extremism, and how is your art? Because it's an art in its own self. How is it actually fighting against violent extremism?
First of all, it's a great honor to be here, and I'm extremely happy that I managed to make it. I'm not, I must say, a CVE expert, but over the years, as a social commentator, as a political commentator, I have dealt with, like many commentators, I've dealt with the issue of violent extremism. I've experienced it in one way or the other. I think when the 1998 bombing happened in Mombasa, I was at Nation Center, whereby I felt the bomb, and I ran all the way to where it happened. And so over the years, I've commented ferociously in my work, and sometimes at the expense of being threatened, and because, well, you know, as an editorial cartoonist, you say things probably other commentators cannot say. So you run foul of religious leaders and other people coming after you. So that's one thing. I'm also a co-founder of Puni Media and an animator and also a TV producer. So we produce, for example, content, satirical content like the XYZ show, which again deals with awareness and telling people what is happening and pointing out to governments and telling truth to power in general, and telling the emperor that you're naked. And those are also very important in society, and that goes also to many writers. And I think that should continue. I think it's important always to guard the space that is there as commentators, because I think I always say that I'm very privileged, because I have the platform to say what many people cannot say. So I don't take my job also lightly. It can be tricky, but it's important. But there's something important that also the media can do that probably I can point out. The media also has to understand where we are. One of the things that the media can do in ICT is really to invest in ICT. I think Noor has mentioned it. There are two reasons for that. We can't expect governments to invest in ICT because they don't do that, and it's not their role. But the media should invest in ICT. Number one, the people and groups that propagate violent extremism are very good at using the new technological tools to spread hatred and all that. And we are living in the age of infodemics, disinformation, and information. And so we have to constantly engage the youth, but also keep, for lack of a better word, reinventing the wheel, so to speak, in terms of how we are going to engage the youth, how are we going to tap into the youth. Because groups that propagate violence, they are very good at that. So there is no choice, the media has no choice but to invest in youth. And then lastly, I think probably for policymakers, it's important. I think this has been said a lot in the morning about the whole issue of the youth and the availability of jobs, government investing in youth and so forth. It's important also, in my view, we have to shift our discussions. A lot of times, as I take exceptions to the when people talk about talent. You know, when you talk about, I think we need to find new language in terms of how when the governments have to invest in that, and this is mostly the government has to do a lot, because when they say, in our institutions, in our schools, we treat talent as the other. It's not serious, it's talent. It's not talent. Even accountants are talented. It's work. And the moment that discussion shifts, then we will see seriousness. Because even in our schools, the arts are not taken seriously because they are talents. But they are not talents. They've never been talents. Writers throughout histories, mobile phones were not invented by engineers. It's the arts, it's the writers, it's artists who first wrote about mobile phones. Today we have mobile phones, but that credit goes to engineers. So it's important that discussion has to shift within the government, that even in our policies, in our institutions, that we don't refer to talents. I take exception to that. I don't think I'm more talented than many people. I think I work as hard. I think I've been lucky. But there are a lot of young people that work hard. They need to work hard. So that is a problem, because once you say these are talented, it's the other. It's lots of artists, and sometimes artists are very solitary beasts. We like to work on our own. And you know, you go in your little corner and do your thing, and that is. I think one of the things that artists can do, especially at this era, is to collaborate. Is that whether you're a musician, whether you are a writer, that can go a long way. We tend to heap a lot of blame, and rightly so in many ways, to the government in terms of what the government do. And I think the government, yes, we should blame the government, because the arts and the sector needs the government. There is no way. Some of the discussion about people talking, saying a lot of times I've heard people saying, you know, the government can do enough. No, the government should do more. There's no question. In many, we tend to look at many European countries. There is in many countries like France, for example, up to today, the government subsidizes the arts. That's why their industries, like their films, are you know, way ahead and they can compete. It's because the government puts money. So I heard some people from the government, you know, trying to say, you know, no, the government must do more. There is no question about it. It's a way of government trying to say this and that. Number one priority, the government has no excuse when you have 80% of people come from the sector, yet you know, even 10% does not go there. So that's very important. As for the artists, of course, yes, we cannot cry, we cannot keep crying. So one way to do that is always to find ways to collaborate. And I find great joy in collaboration. Actually, to be honest, apart from the editorial drawings that I do, the projects that I've done, and somehow, in a way, you can say they've gone a bit to succeed, like the XYZ show, is because it has been a collaboration. It's basically I've worked with good musicians, it's good directors, it's good puppeteers. It has worked. Now, artists sometimes are very egotistic. They think that you know, there's a tendency artists to think that in the sector that to think they, in a way, they are, you can say they've gone a gift to humanity. No, they are not. Like they are humans because like it has been a collaboration. And collaboration goes a long way to actually to support them. But also you go back to what I keep saying is that because also culturally we come from a background where goes a long way to actually respect, for lack of a better word. I mean, I don't know many parents who saying is that because also would culturally we come from I was lucky my parents encouraged them all the way, but they had their reservations. A lot of parents that I've talked to, they would say, well, my kid is really, he loves drawing. And I'm not sure, but can you, and I've mentored a lot of kids. And that, they start from a wrong premise to begin with, because you are doubting your kid. The first thing is to encourage. And where we are going, for example, the arts, the music, the technology where we are going, we don't know the future of jobs. But we can encourage the arts. We can encourage, the same way we encourage engineering.
Let's hold on there.
Yes, yeah. So that you basically build you build a foundation for that, especially in our institutions and in our schools.
Okay, thank you. We have the presence of Fatma. How are you? The HOD of Social Sciences.
And where we are going, for example, the arts, the
now
music,
we dive into
the technology
the
where we're
education
going.
part.
We don't know the future of jobs.
Or improve the CVE, especially in the institution that you're in at the moment? Pundigong.
I'm a lecturer at the Technical University of Mombasa. Now I'm out from the head of department position because, you know, with my research life it was difficult. So mentoring young people throughout inner higher education is...
Do you hear her?
Can you hear me?
Munamsikia jama. Okay, go.
Can you hear me now? You see, I don't need this. I can speak loud, but you see, I'm trying to be very courteous. So, so in an institution, it's not easy. When you talk about CVE, mentoring is easy when it comes to other topics. But when you talk about a topic like violent extremism, especially when we talk about Islamist violent extremism, because when we talk about violent extremism, we always confuse. We also should know which type of violent extremism we are dealing with. So in a higher education institution, the difficulty is no one, we lecturer student has an interaction, right? But still, we may not get the real facts, right? Because these are like cults. I call it cults. So we have done a lot of studies which have spoken about emerging trends, especially via social media, because these are young people who have access online, and then they have the capacity, the intelligent brains, right? So we are grappling with this problem because we had few cases at our university as well. So it's not something like just awareness alone. We need a lot of what I call is life skills which we are missing out. Like life skills, what I'm talking about is, it's important in every aspect, but here it's like you go to a website, you have content. Now, you see whether it's Al-Shabaab or ISIS or whatever extreme group, they're not going to say, oh, we are Al-Shabaab, we are recruiting. No, they come via subtle means. So how intelligent or how can we give life skills to these young people to have this critical consciousness to understand even via a small message there is something on recruitment. Like for example, I did a lot of research in, because my area is youth and radicalization, especially in line with Al-Shabaab and ISIS. One of the main areas which constantly comes across is, it's not even very earmarked Facebook sites. It's just WhatsApp groups. I have cases where young girls have got recruited by just going to buy a hijab. So who knows that you're going into something to buy a hijab will make you end in a network where you will be taken from one WhatsApp group to another, you see? So you start with just buying hijab. Then you find someone telling you, my sister, we have this group. Would you like to join? Now from that group, someone else comes and tells, knowing her inclination, my sister, shall we, we would like you to be in this group. In the end, you will end up in a particular group with only 4 people. By that time, you have been tuned. And then, when you become friends, you open up. By now, you have told about yourself to this group very well. Now you can't even get out of it. Because now, they'll intervene in different ways, like, do little things. It starts with saying, upload this. So without knowing, you have already gone to a point, now you can't turn back. Now at that level, how will this girl or boy now ask assistance or come? Because she's scared. She or he is very scared. Because they will say, if you take this message, this is what will happen. Because you have now been friendly, you have given information about yourself. So it's very important for us to understand these networks. So social media is good, technology is good, what else? Then also I would like to share is, I'm a researcher. So by nature, I have been working since 2012 in Sri Lanka, and before, same with terrorist networks in Sri Lanka. So these days I use a lot of art, and some of my participants are also here. I wanted to show something which you can do, CVE research using art.
Guys, can you see
right?
it?
I don't know whether it's very clear. This is my first time of using art with Coventry, Leeds, around 5 universities. And some of the students are, the participants are here. We did only take technical university students, no. So if you see, this is a girl. She's here, I don't want to mention her name. So she's trying to put out what violent extremism means to her, right? Because for us, when we talk about violent extremism, at once we will think Al-Shabaab, ISIS, or some political thing. But for her, it meant freedom of what she is in. So it gives out a lot on how her brother, how her cousin was involved, her ethnicity was involved. Like she's trying to be a Kenya within having the Kenyan Somali context, you see. So this picture gives a lot rather than me taking a questionnaire or an interview guide. So it gives a lot. And this is a girl who tried to put, it was a lot to her because it brings a lot of emotions. which is captured in this picture. So it's a very interesting way of bringing art into CVE research. And these days we are also using performance art with Manyata on research involving how to use theater on CVE. Like for example, when a mother feels the loss of her son being disappeared or dead, how will we capture those? Through art, rather than asking this person to talk out. So it's not easy, we are talking about emotions, so many things. So how can art capture? So these are novel ways we are bringing in as academics into art as well. So I think it's very important to also look into both sides, how we bring in art into research and also do research to understand what this elephant is. Because we are talking a lot about social media being bad. Social media, it's important. It's a necessary evil sometimes. But what is it? How will parents understand the younger generation? Because I know parents don't even know which platform you're in. How many mothers would have told me that my son got recruited online, but she doesn't know anything about online. Merely she only knows to SMS. So think of an environment like that, how parents can monitor the social media platforms. How can we assist? So what is this elephant we are talking about? That is very important in CVE research and also for practitioners who are working on it. Because we can't always say social media is this, social media is this. What is social media? The bad side of social media. So it's very important to have a lot of research, because in the morning there was this lady who discussed about education, scholarships, because there are many who get caught via education scholarships through jobs, going abroad or very locally. Because once you send your CV, all the information is now retained in their banks. Now it's easy for someone to call you and say, I know you, you have applied, I'll give you a job. So on the process, there are ways they would take you from one level to another on recruitment. So these are some areas which needs a lot of research probing and also intervention. So that's how, even if you talk about the higher education, coming back to the first question, we still don't have proper research. We know the strategies, but we still can't find appropriate research to say this is the exact way this person has got recruited. Because these are via very hidden, subtle, recruitment strategies. And even the friends around, because there was at one point, there was one particular student I was running behind, because at that time I was working on this research. She got scared. And imagine I'm one of her closest lecturer. And after some time, she disappeared. So you can imagine that type of stress for the lecturer and also the student, not because she was a bad person, but because she was also, we call it she was scared. And then her friends are scared to give her name and all those things. So it's a very difficult terrain we are navigating, because it's not seen. We call it a hidden world. Then we have other discourse narrative analysis which we need behind the meaning. Like, for example, codings that happens online. And now I'm in my mid-30s. I cannot relate to a young girl at 19 because she has her own way of coding and relating. So how do we understand these messages going via, in terms of, recruitment doesn't come as recruitment. So they go via these particular social relationships. Like, for example, maybe a boyfriend, or maybe it can be another friend who is trying to talk about Islam. There's nothing on radicalization there. But in the end, you end up discussing about Boko Haram, maybe some grievances somewhere. I'm not saying grievances are wrong. We have issues there. But I'm talking about how these things would take you from one point to another until you are in a particular cell.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you very much. Hey, guys, did you just hear what she said? Do you think that social media leads to violent extremism? What's your take? What is your take? Okay, let's finish up with the panelists, then we'll come to you, and you can ask questions to them concerning the same, right? Guys, come on. Can't you give me a smile at least? Amani venye mmevaa hizo mask. And the way you guys looking great. Oh my God, you deserve a crown. And okay. As a writer, we have Shifa, Yakut. Do you think that media has done a lot in terms of writing articles concerning the CVE? First of all, we have the best writers in this place right now. You'll be joining her very soon. I'm sure after this, you'll have a session. Shifa, tell us more. How does your art helps in fighting against CVE?
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I am a writer. I write creative nonfiction and short stories. I am not an expert in CVE. I am not an expert in violence and extremism. But I believe through the articles that I've written, I've helped a lot of people counter especially mental instability, which then lead to violence and extremism. Because personally, I do read other people's work. I read a lot of people's work. I read a lot of people's articles. And in those articles, you will find out there is a lot of violence happening. There is a lot of extremism. Especially my favorite writer in Kenya is Bikozulu. He has a category in his blog that speaks about men and marriage, and then there is another section that speaks about women and marriage. So, because especially since COVID, everybody has been confined inside their homes mostly, when people have been forced to stay indoors, work from home. This is the most difficult and tough time that people have to forcefully face their spouses, because we've actually come to realize that in real life, people used to actually run away from the people they live with. It is sad that when you ask people before 2020 or before COVID, many people never used to have a life inside their home, never used to have a life within their family members. So these people go through a lot, and they use outside to run away from the problems that are happening inside. So now that people have been confined into their own homes, people are opening up. But since not everyone can come out and talk about what is really happening, people reach out to those people who have a voice. So people reach out to writers, people reach out to artists, especially writers like us who write anonymously. I have a lot of stories in my website that I write anonymously, and maybe some other people would think it is my personal story or somebody else's personal story. But when you come across an article that talks about how someone has gone through maybe domestic violence or any kind of violence, and how they've come about surviving it, these people get hopes to actually share, because sharing is the first step to solving the problem. So I personally think it actually begins with the culture of reading. So if we build up the culture of reading, we come to finding that writing helps because we appreciate these people's work. Yes.
Okay. Now the floor is open. Let's hear from you. Any questions to the panelists who are here at the moment? Do you have any questions? The floor is open now. Yes. Any other? Okay. Okay. Sanitize kabisa kabisa.
Hello all again. My question goes directly more on the media side. And this is a great challenge or a great issue that we see on a day-to-day basis. One of the question is, where do we draw the line between politics and development? Because what we see on a daily basis, on our newspapers, on our print media, is more of politics rather than good governance, which we are having. So that creates a lot of gap, and that is what we are actually telling our youth to lead to, rather than becoming more developmental or more innovative. 2, what precedence is there between, again, politics and learning? We are here, seated here, because we are learning more about how to tackle the issues of violent extremism. But given an opportunity sitting in this room, and then we say we are having either one of our senior state persons, let's say Raila within, or the president is around, and is having a meeting just not far from here, let's say at Aga Khan, will the media people be here? Will they be seated here? They won't. They will actually run to the other side. So where do we draw the line again? Where do we take precedence? Is it politics more, or is it about learning? Then over and over time, again within the same pretext, what we usually see is more of bad rather than good. And this is where now we have divisive, or we have news that lead most of the youth to create hate within themselves. How do we do that? Because sometimes if you see news which is coming in through is more about so and so is fighting ABCD, then giving the youth an opportunity, a dividing line. Either you are in this group or you are on the other group. When do we draw the line to bring the light and say, this is our way we want to follow? And we know media as the fourth estate, you have enough power. So in most cases, what we see is what people follow. Is there a behavioral change in how we report such issues? Thank you.
That's a big challenge there thrown to us media. But before you answer that, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Esther Ngolo, who is from the county government. And also I would like to acknowledge Mr. Kamunde, who's from the Communication Authority in Coast Region. If they would like to give a comment or a question to the panelists over here, please feel free to do so. And also you can give us your more views concerning the matter. Thank you.
Habari ya mchana. Mimi naitwa Sofia na mimi ni mwandishi wa habari kwa muda mrefu sana, lakini wengi uniuliza kwa nini hatujawahi kukuona kule mbele mbele licha ya zile kazi unazofanya. Sababu ni nyingi, lakini tutayaacha nje hayo. Na kama mwandishi wa habari huwa nasikia vibaya sana wakati jamii inaingia katika masuala ambayo tunajaribu kusaidia, lakini wakati mwingine kule kuelewa kwa jamii ndio inakuwa ni matatizo kidogo. Nikizungumzia hivi nitasema kwamba kwa sasa nafanya kazi na Al-Shifa TV. Kama mojawapo ya vyombo vya habari tunajaribu sana kuhakikisha kwamba kijana mwanzo tumempa kipaumbele. Na tukizungumzia kama katika vyombo vya habari kwa ujumla, tunaona kwamba zipo sehemu ama zipo platform ambazo zimeweza kuwekwa ili kuhakikisha kwamba kijana ameweza kujitokeza na kueleza yale matatizo yake. Hii ni kwa upande, nitazungumzia kwamba kama kwa upande wetu tunazungumzia kwa vipindi, tunaleta wale vijana katika vipindi. Lakini sisi kama vijana tunaangalia nini? Kijana mwenzako amejitokeza katika labda kwa media fulani, anazungumza masuala ambayo yanakuhusu wewe. Lakini inasikitisha wakati mwingine kuona kwamba tunajisukuma katika upande mwingine. Ukiangalia kwa TV yako ama katika runinga yako ukiona kwamba haya ni masuala, ni watu wamekaa wanajadili maybe masuala ya kiusalama, wewe mwenyewe unahisi sicho kitu unachotaka kusikiza. Kitu ambacho hujui ni kwamba yatakaozungumzwa pale, iwapo hayatapata msukumo kutoka kwa kijana mwingine na mwingine, yatabaki kuwa matamshi tu. hayatafika mahali popote. Vyombo vya habari vinakupatia kile ambacho wao wanapata. Nafikiri dadangu mkubwa pale Esther Ingolo pia amekuwa kwa muda mrefu sana katika media, atakubaliana na mimi. Tunakupa kile ambacho sisi tunapata kwa ground. Na tunapofanya vile, ina maana kwamba sisi kama jamii, wakati mwingine inabidi tutoke kama waandishi wa habari, tuje katika upande wa jamii, kuhakikisha kwamba kile tulichokipata tunakifuatilia vipi. Kweli vyombo vya habari sasa hivi vinaonyesha mambo mingi sana, hasa katika masuala mazima ya kisiasa. Tunaona kwamba kuna uporaji mwingi sana unafanyika. Lakini mwandishi wa habari anapokuja na kukuelezea fulani na fulani amefanya hivi, yeye ameplay part yake. Lakini sisi kama vijana tunafanya nini? Do we have mechanisms to follow up those things that we are seeing or we are reading or we are hearing? Na tutasaidiana vipi ili kuhakikisha kwamba tunaibadilisha ino jamii? Kumbuka mwandishi wa habari anapitia mambo mengi sana. Yeye ni mwandishi wa habari, amewekwa pale, nitasema ametolewa chambo. Tunaona kwamba mambo mengi yanafanyika. Chukua mfano, wakati wa zile attacks zilikuwa zikifanyika, tukiangalia Tana River, tukiangalia Lamu, tukiangalia Westgate. Kila mtu zile security apparatus wana fight kuondoa wale wenyeji. Lakini wewe kama mwandishi unaelekea upande gani? Unasukumwa kwenda kule. Nani anasaidia yule mwandishi? Kuna masuala mazima ya psychological problems ambao wanapitia. Lakini pia huwa wanajipiga kifua na kuyaeka kando. Because most of them don't even have counselors wenye watawasaidia kisaikolojia, lakini they are really fighting to make sure mwananchi na kijana ameweza kutambua mambo mengi sana katika jamii. Lakini hakuna mtu anajiuliza kwamba hawa mwisho wa siku wanaenda majumbani mwao. Umepelekwa mahali, wakati kama ule nilikuwa nazungumza na baadhi ya wafanyikazi ambao tuko nao pale Al-Shifa. Umepelekwa mahali kama Tana River kwa wakati ule. Believe you me, nilikuwa mmoja wapo. Vita kule vilikuwa baadhi ya jamii mbili. And it was so unfortunate, I looked like one of ile community ulikuwa wanapigana. So hata kwa wenzako wa media unapata shida. Wewe unatuuza. Because unapita mahali, mmebeba vitambulisho vyenu vya media, lakini wanauliza, "Hiyo mbona anakaa kama wale?" You're within the people, your fellow media personnel. But nitakaa nianze kukimbilia watu wa security niwaambie mimi ni mtu wa media japokuwa nimefanana na mtu fulani basi munilinde. Wao wako busy doing other things, protecting the community of the place. So kijana, unapoitwa katika vipindi vinavyokupatia wewe fursa ya kuja kutoa yale matatizo ama kuja kujadili masuala ya kijana, hasa katika masuala mazima ya itikadi kali ama itikadi potofu, tafadhali tujitokeze. Utapata kwamba kwa sasa hivi ukweli ni kwamba hapa kuna platforms more than 4 ziko live. Tunazungumza masuala muhimu sana. Lakini angalia ni kina nani wanaangalia? Kwa social media, kina nani wanaangalia? It is the same social media ambao nashukuru sana madam pale amedokezea baadhi ya yale mambo mimi nataka kusema. Social media sahi tunasema kwamba iwapo kama limeletwa na moto, basi hata wewe pambana nalo na moto. Sahi social media ndio inatumika sana katika kurecruit haya makundi. Sahi tunaona kumenyamaza, but hakuja nyamaza. There is a lot that is happening in the social media. One of the things amezungumza madam akasema kwamba through duka la kununua mtandio. Wewe ni customer pale wanakuambia, "Yeah, tutakuweka kwa WhatsApp group." Fine. I rescued a boy mwenye alikuwa anatafuta ufadhili wa kimasomo. Na kama vile tulivyoambiwa, siku hizi sisi passwords zetu tumeziweka sijui ID number ama nini. These guys can track that. Tumeambiwa the person mwenye ako na degree anafanya uhalifu kidegree. So hao watu pia wako na uwezo wa kutambua zile information muhimu sana kutoka kwako. Therefore, wanakurecruit bila kujijua. By the time uje urealize mahali umefika, you can't hook yourself out of it. Kwa hivyo vijana, tafadhali tujitokeze. Let's be our own keepers. Kwa sababu huwa nasikia vibaya sana nikijikuta katika sehemu ambapo kama mwandishi kweli nafanya kazi, lakini nitasaidia vipi? Uwezo wangu wa kusaidia. Kisha tuangalie, kweli runinga zinatuonesha mambo, tunaona zile siasa, lakini the moment tukijipull out of ile community tunasema mimi sisi atufuatilizie habari, utapata mtu ambaye atajifanya akona interest kama yako, polepole akupe kile unachotaka wewe, utaridhika, lakini kitambo uje ujue kwamba umeingia pahala ambapo sipo, itakuwa ni too late. Kijana alipata sponsorship, akapelekwa kule alikotaka kusoma, baadaye naja naelezewa, ndio naja nashangaa. Amefika kule alikokwenda kusoma, mwanzo course alioendea sio, and the next thing ni kwamba aliishilia alikuwa almost aende mahali ambapo pia hapakuwa pasawa.
Thank you so much, Sophia, for that. Let's involve our key guest. If we could have Mr. Kamunde, if he has something to say, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kamunge from Cve Communications Authority, the regional manager, Coast Region, and it's a pleasure to be in the group because what I'm hearing actually, I would say some of it is the first time, but again, seems like the solution is within us. And then see, first of all, just to tell you whom we are, because really much of it which is being discussed here concerns the Cve Communications Authority. We do regulate any type of communication. We regulate ICT. After regulating ICT, we license all types of services and systems. And when we talk of the CVE, you know much of it, because people would want to do it anonymously. They will hide behind the social news, the social media. Or actually they want to hide behind the internet, because that's the easiest word for you to get. I don't want to repeat, because I've heard it, and particularly from the lecturer. It's normally a process for you to be recruited. And by the time I was here, the CC, the county commissioner said, mtu anajipata. Saa zingine hata ujui unajipata. But I would say we have at least 4 pieces of legislation in the government. I really don't want to go too deep into it, but and I don't want to mention about the Huduma number, because it will be another issue. But get to know that any information, we are in digital age, we are in digital age. Any information you give out there is protected, and has to be protected with something called the data, it's called the data protection law. Any information, if somebody misuses that data, you have a right and you are protected. The other one is something called the computer incidents. This thing you do in the media, in the media, online. Anything you do online, don't think you remain anonymous. You'll be caught. You'll be caught one day. And tunasemanga for government, you can hide now, but you cannot hide forever. You can hide now, but you cannot hide forever. So, as youth, even what you'll be doing online, internet and also does not forget, and it will get you one day. So, Kadre, be very careful. Be very careful. You'll get you one day. And now, the third one is the Communications Authorities Act. It's called KICA. As we regulate all type of ICT, there are so many registrations without within the KICA, the Kenya Information and Communication Act, which you can use if, in case, you find the media or the social media, the WhatsApp, the words, even and we have been saying, even the group administrators of social groups, they will be held responsible for some of these things which go on there. Within now the KICA, there is actually what we call the laws relating to cyber incidences and response. Don't think that because it's Twitter, don't think that because it's LinkedIn, don't think that because it is Instagram, don't think that because it's WhatsApp, you will never be caught. We are as CA, now I'm talking of CA, so that anything you do online, know that the government is also on it, is watching. We have a response team in Kenya. We have a response team in Kenya because computer incidences are many. So we have what is called Computer Incidents and Response Team. We have a right to monitor anything. And don't think even in your phone we cannot monitor, we can. But we are not interested if you are not also, if you are yourself, you are not interested in CVE. But again, when it comes to such a forum, I don't know why it's called Bananul, why you're calling it a festival, because I'm not sure it's a festival.
It is a festival, sir.
It is a festival.
Yeah, it is. That's why there's a large number who have turned here to actually celebrate it, because it's about time it's heard. Not only here, I'm very sure that the content which is shared, it will go through very far, and it is through the social media. And thank you very much.
Agreed, but I would think that it's a forum. Maybe my English is poor. But the festival, I thought, I've been to Ramu Festival, and we are happy when we are in a festival. But I don't think we have that happy mood here. We are discussing here on some of the ills which affect our youth. And you know, when we, from now countering violent extremism, we go now to terrorism. Terrorism has been an issue to the government and have been an issue to the society, and for sure, it has to be, how we counter this has to be multifaceted by so many people. Not necessarily the forum say, CIF, actually not Hack Africa, and there is not Swahili Report, by the way. It should be even other quarters. When it comes to our institutions of learning, the best people are recruited from there. We are lagging behind on how this one happens. How can we read the youth? Because the youth are so much ahead, even for ahead of the government, ahead of the institutions, ahead of the families. So do we have that? Do we have morals, authority needed to say that we are trying to counter for those people who are far much ahead of us? Madam have said, the lecturer have said, this parent knows only the SMS, nothing else. But somebody was recruited through internet. As a parent leader, what do you, and for CA, we have so many, and I'll say sorry, because I've not been to the tomb. We have so many materials, meant for parents, meant for youth, and meant for all categories of people on some of these ills which are happening in the internet, or these things which are happening in ICT. Because once you regulate, we are expecting most positive things out of ICT. But unfortunately, the negatives of the ICT are becoming so many, I even don't know where we are going after this. Because do we need to keep on regulating, or do we keep on actually trying to put some full stop to ICT so that we don't go further than this? Because if we go further than this, we will be completely lost. Are you ready to take some responsibility? Youth, are you ready to take some responsibility?
A question to the youth, are you ready to take responsibility?
And we'll be good to go. if you take responsibility, make use of the positive side of ICT, forget about the negative side of ICT. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If Madam Esther could have the microphone, please, and contribute something.
Thank you very much. Hi. Thank you for this opportunity. And I think the panelists have done a good job in handling the topic regarding the media, and even from the comments from the audience. And I want to agree with the Gado when he said that there has to be diversity with media, because the tactics we used when I was in radio, for example, you cannot use the same tactics now. Then I was the one to give the information to the audience. But now, sometimes even the presenter doesn't know as much as the audience does. So then that calls for the media to actually be on its toes. And also the media at the moment is actually struggling. Mainstream media is struggling with digital media, because sometimes, even before what we used to call a scoop, most of the media houses sometimes can't even get a scoop, because by the time you get the scoop, it's already on everybody's timeline. And so at that point, you don't even have a scoop anymore. And even sometimes, and I'm probably a victim, I don't even watch TV, for example, as much, because by 6, 7 p.m. thereabout, I pretty much know everything that has happened, because they were either live, or if they were not live, they've already given me an update. So then at that point, I'm like, sasa hata na watch TV ya nini na najua kile ambacho kimeshafanyika. So the times that we are in are tricky, in the sense that, like even he said, keeping up with the generation, even for the media, has become a problem, because then sometimes you don't even know where they are. And that's why I think the role of the media, for example, and I'm not sure if it's you who mentioned that we need partnerships, because even as media, we cannot continue to work alone, because also sometimes media has fallen into the ditch of, for example, you are supporting a certain side, and so the confidence that the audience had in you as a media house that is very responsive, as a media house that had integrity, just maybe because of your interaction with one person or the other, or one organization or the other, you don't have the authority anymore. And so anything you say, unasikia mtu anasema achana na hawa wana propaganda, ama achana na hawa wanasema hivi na hivi. And you can see even just the concluded US elections, there are those stations that were very pro one candidate and the other ones were not. And so the debate is always going on. And even now, the media personalities are even having a problem with having to comment as the personality, and also as the personality who, for example, is affiliated to a certain station. So then partnerships, and especially with the youth-led organizations, is very important for the media to have that, because then it helps to shape the conversation, like you said, Mahmoud. You see, a conversation and a narrative has to be shaped. Already the terrorists have shaped their narrative. So which narrative are we shaping, or we are falling prey to the narrative that they have shaped for us? So that is the role that we have as a media, to be able now to shape the narrative that we want the young people to adhere to. At the same time, there are very many other things that we could happen. For example, we could definitely find the right messenger to deliver the information to the young people, because we may have the right information, but who are we sending to give the information? Yule ambaye unamtuma, watu wanamtaka ama hawamtaki. Manake kama hawamtaki, watakata message na yule aliyetumwa. Lakini kama wanamtaka, iweza kuwa hata hana message, lakini akakubaliwa, madamu yuatakwa. So we must find the messenger of the message to the young people, and also identify which young people do we want to talk to? Where are they? What are they doing? Where can we find them? Where do they hang out most? Are they always on the internet? If they're always on the internet, which sites are they visiting? Who are they following? And why are they following that particular person? Because you may decide to use a mode of communication which to you looks like the right mode of communication, but ukienda kwa yule kijana, you're communicating to yourself. Yeah, hayuko pale is definitely in another place. And then, of course, to find the right audience, it necessitates even segmentation, you know, that you segment that I want to talk to the young people at this point. Labda hata kama ni Mombasa kwa mfano, I don't believe that vile unaongelesha kijana wa Old Town ni vile utaongelesha kijana wa Kisauni. Two different. They share the same challenges, same everything, but you cannot communicate to them in the same way. So you have to segment. Ama labda hata kijana wa Timbwani na wa Kirunge, you cannot even use the same language to speak to those two. You have to segment so that you are able to directly get to them and get the message out there. So probably that is another thing that the media can take advantage of. And also avoid proactive response, because once you are dealing with issues that have to do with CVE, then a proactive response turns out to be lethargic all the time, because then at that point you're not thinking through the message ambayo unatuma kwa wale watu ambao unataka iwafikia. So generally the media has a big role to play still, even though we can say that at this point the consumption level has gone higher, but then still, for example, I'm not sure like how many people still read the newspaper religiously as probably they used to read 10 years ago. The numbers may have gone low, or maybe even buying the physical newspaper. There are people who probably read the paper online and that's it. Hata aenda kununua ile gazeti yenyewe. So that's why unapata labda mtu atachukua katuni ya Gado, aifanye meme, aanze kuishare, lakini hata hajaona gazeti. Ukimuuliza hata ilikuwa kwa gazeti gani, hajui hata Gado ni wa gazeti gani. But ameshare ile meme kama message inamfaa yule mtu. So as pertains young people, like we are looking towards inclusion in everything, we must have inclusion, especially for the young people, and also have things that fit the young people vile wanavotaka wao, sio vile tunavotaka sisi ambao tunataka kuwapatia message. Because even the message, we may think that this is the message they want to communicate, and maybe it's not the message they want to communicate. So then when it comes to media, I think it's important that now that everybody has the power of the pen, you can wake up and paint your TL the way you want to paint it. You can go to IG and do whatever you want. Right now, you can even have your own podcast. Ama wewe kila siku unaamka unaenda live, hata hakuna kitu unatuambia lakini uko live. So meaning that at that point when you are live, there's zero control over the content ambayo uko nayo. So content ni nzuri, content ni mbaya, wewe you go ahead with it. I think we saw that during COVID times, wakati kulikuwa na IG lives ambazo zingine zilikuwa zinakatizwa katikati because ya content. So then, but then some people, they can actually get away with it, and at that point labda mtu ashasema kitu ambacho kilikuwa hakitakani kusema. So that's why, like he said, because there's the free will sahizi, I cannot probably gag anybody that you cannot say this, you cannot say this. I remember when Cve left Kiss, and he said on his show now, he said, I wanted to talk like this because there I was gagged by a lot of, you can't say this, you can't say that, you can't say this, it's not watershed and all that. And he wanted a space where he could say anything and use all the profanities that he's used to say. So that's the world we are in right now. And like he said, watu wakiwa wako kule maji makuu. Maji makuu weza kwenda na kiboti. Kitambo fike kule, kama kitu watu walikuwa wafanya washakifanya. So tuchukulie vijana wako maji makuu, sisi tuko hapa. What tactics are we going to use so that we are able to communicate kwa wale wako maji makuu na sisi tuko hapa? Because as long as wako maji makuu, wanaendelea wakienda, na sisi tuko hapa tuendelea tukiwafuata. So we must find a way that we are able to communicate with the young people, and also be where they are, say what they want to say and not what we think they want us to say, even as the media. Thank you very much.
Thank you a lot. Waga wanasema vitu ni different kwa ground. Kama Dalila Hamza, yani, my life hasn't been easy, but the media we use, actually it changes us. Don't you agree? Don't you agree? I'm sure you do. Sasa, before these panelists go out of here, don't go out without asking your question, because there is a need for you to be answered and to get clarification on the matter. Any questions for our panelists here as we wind up? Let's speak out. Tuongee, tusitoke hapa tukasema kwamba no.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Mine is a contribution and also a challenge to all of us. From morning, what I'm trying to gather is there is a role I'm supposed to play as a youth. There is a role everyone has to play generally. But I feel like we are not looking at the role that our leaders, political, religious leaders play in violent extremism. I mean, we've seen leaders, I don't know if it's during this corona period or it was end of last year, a leader, a political leader who is even a youth, would shoot a young man in a club. And by now, I think he got away with it because I don't see anything happening. We've seen leaders abuse the very status of this nation and get away with it. So generally, I feel like we have spoken about what I'm supposed to do as a youth, what other parties are supposed to do, but what are our political leaders, our Christian leaders, our Muslim leaders doing in this fight? Because they also have a big role to play. I mean, we can talk all we want today, but I go home, I watch the news, this leader is abusing this leader on national TV, and there is nothing we can do about it. I mean, is it that justice is for some of us and some of us get away with what we want? Because like someone spoke about the repercussions. If you can just do whatever you want on your phone or your computer, it's being seen by the government, all that. But if these leaders go to their Twitters and abuse or incite youth, because most of them are the ones who actually incite youth, how comes them they can get away with this? Because I think that's where this violent extremism mentality begins. If my leader can get away with this, I mean, if my leader can shoot someone, and I don't know if they forgave them or what happened, and it's okay, why can't I, for example?
Sorry for interrupting. Thank you very much for your point. Noted. Our leaders have this responsibility to actually fight violent extremism and also join the youth. Any other?
Okay. Habari ya saizi sote. My name is Mwalimu Mwaguzo na ninafanya kibarua na Al-Shifa Online TV. Maybe langu ni swali tu kwa our mentor pale brother Mahmoud Nur and yale mashirika ambayo yako hapa kama Haki Afrika na kina Manyata. Swali langu ni kwamba sisi kama TV station tuko na platform ambayo tumeamua kuiweka kwa vijana, ambapo tumekaa hapa since asubuhi. Tunakuta most of the youth kitu ambacho kikubwa wanakosa ama wanakililia pia ni kuweza kupata zile platform so that waweze kuonyesha vile vitu ama vipawa ambavyo wako navyo. So we kama organization labda tumesema kwamba we are ready tuweze kuwatengea like maybe 2 days a week kuweza kuja katika live TV shows zetu, kila mmoja kuweza kuonyesha kile ambacho yuko nacho. But definitely unajua kwamba ni lazima tutakuwa kunahitajika support from the organization ambazo ziko hapa. So ni vipi tunaweza kushirikiana sisi kama Al-Shifa Online TV na kupitia Swahili Pot, Haki Africa and the other organization to ensure that hii program ambayo tunataka kuianzisha itaweza kuboresheka. Vile vile tumeanzisha program ambayo tunaita Tabasamu Show. It's a platform kama vile platform ya Churchill. Mungu akipenda from December tutaanza kuiroll officially. So pia tunaweza kuomba ile partnership ama support from the organization ambazo ziko hapa to ensure that kwamba hawa mayouth wetu ambao wapo tutaweza kuwasaidia kisawasawa. Nikimalizia labda swali langu la mwisho litakuwa kwa the organization Haki Africa, Swahili Pot and the rest, kwamba tumeangalia ndugu zetu wa Tanzania. Saizi tuko na product ambazo tulikuwa tukiziangalia kama mchezo tukiwacheka. Tukiangalia upano wa TPF, Tasker Project Fame. For the first time watu kumuona Harmonize wamemuona through TPF. Wengine wakimcheka, wakimuona hakuna kitu yofanya, wengine wakimdharau, lakini leo amekuwa one of the wale musician ambao wanaangaliwa na ulimwengu mzima. Na tukiangalia inaonyesha wazi kwamba ni ile bidii na juhudi ya yale mashirika ambayo yako kule. like how Tasker Project PEM, BSS, Bongo Star Search, J Swahili Pot and the organization ambao wako hapa, ni vipi wanaweza kuja na mfumo kama ule to ensure that yule kijana mdogo ambao tumemwona hapa akicheza ataweza kukuzwa ile talenti yake na kuweza kufikia kama wale wengine.
Brother Mahmoud, you'll answer that later as we wrap up. Any other one more?
Thank you. Hi everyone. For me, I just have a few contributions, rather suggestions, or maybe questions. Niko na swali to influencers. I believe hapa kuna watu from the social media. Shufa, one of you. Shufa, you're an influencer. Maybe just enlighten us and the other influencers who are here. What are the influencers doing in regards to countering violent extremism? Kwa sababu we follow a lot of people who are very famous and have a lot of followers. But most of the things utaona they keep reposting and reposting is maybe beauty products, functions that benefit them. But let's say an incident like police brutality has happened in Kenya, you find not many posts that. But kama imefanyika US, you see a lot of people talking about it. Unaona, but the local influencers do not benefit us. I believe that's my opinion, because almost all of them I follow on my Instagram page. Maybe it's beauty products, functions, or something that has happened in the other part of the world. But maybe I think it's time for them to focus on, in Kenya.
Thank
you. Maybe my last thing is to the mainstream medias, the radio channels and stuff. You know, when I was in journalism school, they said, if you get some news 10 minutes later than another news channel, then that news is stale. There's no need to keep publishing it. But sometimes you realize this news is really, really important and it's affecting us. Utaona, if it's BBI, ama kitu ya Raila na Ruto, they'll keep posting it. But cases na police brutality, you definitely know police flani amefanya mistake. You post it once and that's the end of it. Na unaacha wananchi waanze kudebate. But what are we as the media doing about? What are we doing about it? Unaona, so maybe if we could just have all of the media channels, hata kama yes, it's a competitive field, but something to do with the community. You guys can have a channel whereby kama ni kitu imefanyika against humanity, you stand and talk about it on all your news channels. I don't think there's any government official who can stand against all media channels if they united fighting against something that is not human. Thank you.
Okay, the media, it's about time we stand together and we also give our views. And the last question. Okay, let's get the question.
Yeah, I think my question goes to the media, and this is specific on, because we are talking about violence extremism, but now there's a very big animal who is coming, the political violence, which is coming. And some of us here, we are the same people, because today here we are friends, but I'm sure when it comes to political, we are going to divide ourselves and start even fighting through media, social media, or face-to-face. So I just want to request the radio stations and maybe the TV stations, how are you going to help us to make sure at least the level of violence, political violence within the community goes down in terms of discussing issues which are really affecting our community, but not what politicians want to do with us. Thank you.
Thank you. As we wrap up, we're going to take around the panelists. They're also going to answer some of your questions as we wind up. Shufa, let's hear from you, your last remark, and what do you tell the youth or about CVE and the media?
Okay.
Briefly.
Thank you. I think one of the questions was directed directly to me, and I will not speak on behalf of every influencer, but the same way Madam Esther talked about how the media people relay news, you look at your audience. To which audience am I sending this message to? What time am I sending this message to? Who is the messenger? Is the same stone I will throw to you. Which influencer do you follow and why do you follow them? Because not all influencers are good in talking about violence and extremism, and not all of them are actually interested in that. right? And not all of them can come out and speak about it live, maybe because they've been affected, or maybe because they don't know anything about it, or maybe because they're just ignorant. Because we can't say all influencers are patriots, right? So, the same way we talked about these hijabi influencers where we follow someone because they were wearing a hijab. So one day they decided to put off their hijab. We can't go online and start throwing stones to them. We actually just unfollow and mind our own business. It is the same way we look at these people we are following. Who are we following and why? Because at the end of the day, it all comes back to us. We may be following the wrong people because we have a lot of them around. And I think I've answered you. Just let us look at the right people to follow and why we are following them. We have a lot of people who actually acknowledge these things when they happen, and they actually put them out there. And we have people who come up in groups and create campaigns, especially when such violence and extremism happens, especially police brutality or all those cases that happen. Some influencers cannot do it on their own, so they join up and create campaigns. They do run campaigns and they actually talk about it out there. So it's upon us to make sure we follow the right people and find the right message from them. So, and to the rest of us, actually, it's generally about the whole social world and the whole social media. We look at who are we following and why. If you're following, let's say, Pauline because of beauty and makeup, then when there's police brutality happening and she has not posted about it, it is not her mistake as an influencer. It is you because you followed her for a specific reason, right?
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear it from Gado briefly on the impact of the media in CVE.
Yeah. Number one, I think the issue of violent extremism is a complex issue. It's a very complex phenomenon, and we have to acknowledge that. And so the media on its own, and equally the government on its own cannot tackle it on, we have to face it in a very multi as what is it? Yeah, so we have to. That's one. In relation to there's a question from a young lady over there who said, "What should the youth do?" I think it's important that the youth have to acknowledge that they have to do the work. Most of the time, the youth, they just want to be given stuff. It's hard work. If you look throughout history, youth have taken power, youth have demanded stuff. You want to be given stuff. No, it doesn't happen that way. We have very clever politicians, greedy politicians, who would do anything and to deceive you. So my advice always to the youth, especially now when we are dealing with social media and all sorts of information, we have an overload of information. The youth do not know even what to deal with it. It's to make yourself knowledgeable. There's no other way. Unfortunately, there is no other way. You must make yourself knowledgeable to deal with these issues. And unfortunately, also, the truth is hard. We like simple information. So when you are told, oh, the virus, yule ndio amekuroga. It's simple. It's either huyu or huyu, you go for it. But actually, the issue about virus inaenda namna gani ni ngumu, inabidi uitafute. Now, but ni ukweli, hatuwezi kulikimbia hilo. Hilo ndio ukweli wenyewe huo. Sasa kama vijana mnataka kutako matatizo yanayowahusu, lazima muwe informed na hayo matatizo yanayowahusu. mkienda kujadiliana, wakati vijana mnatoa hoja zenu, lazima muwe equipped na information. Viongozi wengi katika dunia waliopita tumeona tu wamekuwa ni vijana wengi tu. Martin Luther King was when he died 28. No, he at 28 he was already a pastor. Kwa hiyo musiwe hili swala la kusema mnataka mpewe, hamtapewa. Hamtapewa na mtu yote. Lazima mchukue na nyinyi wenyewe kina dada na kina kaka mufanye juhudi hiyo, na moja ya kufanya hivyo ni nyinyi kujiengage katika civic. There has to be civic engagement from the youth. The county politics, you have to follow it. I mean, unfortunately our politics is bad, and our politicians are terrible. There's no other way to describe them. But we are where we are. It is what it is, and you have to engage yourself. I think there's a gentleman who just quickly, the reality about violence, extremism also is that Kenya, I'm Tanzanian, so I have a separate kind of background, but I've lived in Kenya for as many years, so I am pretty much a Costarian, a Luya or a Luo, and I've worked in the media for as many years. Kenya politically has a history of political violence. We should not forget that, and so there is a contribution to that in terms of how the state deals with certain unpleasant issues, and these are very unpleasant issues. Now we'll have also to deal with that. Now in terms of the media, there's a gentleman who was saying that the media is there's too much politics in the media and all that. It's true, but also the media is business, and politics sells, and they have to pay their bills. Now, I agree with you. I hate to see that all the time. I would like to see more good stuff, but unfortunately, that is tricky. Now, the media, in my view, has failed in that respect. It has to show the way as the fourth estate in terms of showing direction. And what you have is that mainstream media is also captive now by political players. Now that has made matters complicated, and in many respects, the introduction of internet and now has also complicated matters, because media houses have lost revenues. As many speakers have said, that people do not need to go to buy physical newspapers anymore, and that means that the revenues have been reduced, and so they have to cut down on their staff. You need to invest in the media so that you can have good investigative journalists to go and actually find out where Al-Shabaab is coming from, where this violence, extremism, and so forth and so forth. Now that has major implications in terms of the media that we have. So it is a huge challenge. We don't have an answer to that, and unfortunately traditional media houses came late to invest in when it comes to online. And in a situation where everybody now can sell his story online, the media is caught up, because basically I can write about my blog, and if I have a few followers, it doesn't matter. We have seen that even in developed and very advanced democracies like America, that you have a president who is propagating lies, outright lies, but he has huge followings, and he's a racist. Over 70 million people voted for him, and they argue all manners of things, or the economy, but this is a racist.
Thank you,
so that is a challenge that we are living with, during this era.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Briefly, Mahmoud, if you'll answer to Mr. Mwalimu Mwaguzo.
Yeah,
and,
maybe
wind up.
I can sanitize after, if you allow me. So, first to answer the question of Mwalimu, and I think I had the same response when Mr. Katei on the other side asked the same question. He was complaining about When the media have a choice between a politician 10 meters from here or 50 meters, they will all go there and they will not be here. And I think for me, the solution is we need to support and invest in media channels like Al-Shifa, Gilitix Media. These are media channels that are specific for young people. So I think it's important for us to all come together and support such media houses, and let us sensitize every young person that whenever you want certain information, go to Al-Shifa, go to Gilitix Media, you'll be able to get what you want. But they will not succeed if we do not invest. We have philanthropists, because Gado says here that also media is doing business. So they are selling politics, they are showing politics because it sells, they need revenue. So we also need civil society, we need private citizens to support media channels that are showcasing or giving opportunity to our young people. And lastly, and also Maguzo, I think for us to be able to achieve all this, we need to form partnerships. Because I think the biggest problem is when people are in a particular space, then somebody comes in and then you start your own stuff and you move on, it becomes difficult. But for example, if we all come together, we know your strong point is this area, I'm good in this area, the other person is good in another area, we'll be able to move further together rather than everybody, individuals or organizations wanting to own everything. So I think this is, for the partnership, I think it is, even for Tabasamu and the rest, it's something that we'll be interested in to support and be part of. And the other issue that I would also want to raise is art. And I want to use the example of Gado. I've been watching his cartoons for many years, I think since when I was in high school. And he's always relevant. And he uses his art to provoke change. Because when he sees corruption, he will illustrate something to show that there is corruption. He will not sugarcoat it. So for us as young people, we also need to use our art to provoke change positively, not to use it negatively. And lastly, we are in a tech space. I've seen the techies here, Ziri, Mukasa, and the rest. We have an opportunity. For example, and this is my last shot before you tell me to stop. If you look at certain tools that are available online, certain, we call them apps. They are apps that will monitor certain conversations. They are used by governments to look for conversations that will be counterproductive to the country, so that they can counter certain threats from happening. But I'm looking at a home or a place like Swahilipot. For example, for somebody to even before they commit suicide, you'll see they are Googling certain things on Google that will tell you this person has a problem and it might commit suicide. So I think for me, I'm telling the techies here, can you come up with applications? For example, even here at Swahilipot, people are using free internet here. Can you give us certain applications so that we look for certain keywords that are customized for our country, so that we know when people are, not that we want to monitor you, Firdaus, don't worry, but the thing is, when you are visiting certain sites or when you are keying certain words, certain keywords, they can be Swahili words, they can be Giriama words, but at least we know that this person is going to a wrong direction and we can find a way. The same way at home, you are the one who pays internet, but you don't know what your little boy or girl is doing in the bedroom there. One day you just wake up, you find him hanging there, or he's been picked by Al-Shabaab and he's gone to Somalia. So we need certain tools that we can sell to our parents so that they can monitor certain behavior, and then we can stop certain catastrophic things from happening in the country. Thank you.
Briefly, Fatma, we get just 1 minute, please, because we are out of time.
So from my end, what I would say is young people should be responsible. I agree to panel members on how young people should be responsible. And then the other aspect is I again agree on how the internet needs to be used safely. And at the same time, we should also be, we need surveillance. but we also need to be so careful that it wouldn't curtail dissent movements as well, because we need to have that balance. And then we always talk about political leadership, and I don't even watch them. I don't know. It's not interesting for me. So it doesn't make sense. You'll be surprised. I am meeting him today, but your name had come so many times during my research as a mentor. These are the people young people should follow. You have evidence in front of you. And then you look into politicians who are useless. So, I mean, think about good followers, following good people, good mentors, so that you have a future. Thank you.
Salim Zani, we get just a little bit.
History ya kusanitize sasa achosha kiasi. I want to react on the question my brother Simon Kate. I think Kasena pia ameweza kuuliza the same question. Dada pale ameuliza about media. What's their main role? Okay, our main role is informing and educating. I think all of us, we understand about it. But also we must understand kwa media, we are the agenda maker, agenda setting makers. If we want to change our society, first, if we are looking in our society right now, for example, tukitathmini kwa kina lile linalofanyika kwa sasa, tukiangalia jamii kile kinachokipenda kwa sana, tunajipata kuwa media lazima tuende katika mkondo kama huo. Ndio, we are agenda setting. Lakini je, tunaangalia na sisi kama media, we are there in business kwanza. Kwa hivyo kama tunatengeza ile agenda yetu ili iweze kuuza vizuri, tupate faida kama kampuni ya kibinafsi, lazima pia tuangalie tunamuuzia nani. Tunaweka in quotes yule audience wetu, the target audience. Na pale ndo tunafika tuona kuwa baada ya mimi kuingia na kuandika katika gazeti masuala ya elimu, je, wanafunzi watawezaje kuendelea na masomo? Halinunuliwi gazeti. Lakini nikiandika BBI, Raila amekuja Pwani, wabunge aliokuwa nao ni 2, watu wamenunua kwa sana gazeti. Je, nitafanya biashara na wanasiasa au nitafanya biashara na masuala ya elimu? I think hapo kila mmoja atapata kuona kuwa kama tunaenda kibiashara, because in business we must make profit, lazima tuje tuangalie siasa kwa sababu ndio gazeti liuze. Lakini nataka pia nisisitize, siku moja nilikuwa na Professor Mbwarali, Dr. Mbwarali from Moi University here Ganjoni. Tulikuwa kwa kipindi, tulikuwa tunaangalia masuala yale ya kupata zile applications. Unatuma applications kwa mitandao ya serikali ili kutafuta fedha uende kusoma. Kipindi kilikuwa kizuri sana. Nilimaliza kipindi, callers in walikuwa only 6. Nikaitwa na bosi wangu Salim Abdurrahman Cheka, kwa nini callers in ni 6? Nikaulizwa message, Facebook ilikuwa ni 2. Nikaangalia messages za kawaida, messages zilikuwa ni sijui ni 6. Sasa naulizwa, kwa nini kipindi leo kimekuwa na callers in kidogo, messages kidogo? Tunarudi pale pale. Jamii yenyewe haijakubali tuongelee hayo mambo jamaa. Tusidanganyane. My sister Ingolo anaelewa masuala kama hayo. Dada yangu pale amejaribu kugusia, Sophie. Jamii haiko tayari kupiga simu kuchangia kuhusu swala la kielimu, kuhusu swala la maendeleo ya kijana. Simon Kete, I think umekuja sana kwa kurunzi ya ugatuzi. Tunafanya kipindi kuhusu mambo ya CVE. I think in Radio Salam nimeeleza mwanzo, tunapatia fursa sana. That's the main role ambayo tuna play part pale kama media. Tumeleta all the stakeholders karibu, tunaongelea kuhusu mambo ya countering the violent extremism. Lakini unapata mtu anapiga simu, anachanganya ile mada na kutwist na kutoa na kuweka katika siasa. We are not serious. Lazima tuambiane ukweli. Sisi kama jamii, the aspect of change, we must have that. If we want to change in positivity, we must also look ni kitu gani tunaweza kufanya. Kwanza sisi wenyewe tukubali kubadilisha ile kasumba yetu, the mindset we have right now ya mambo ya siasa na mambo mengine ya kipuzipuzi. Tuangalie genuine issue ya kumuongoza huyu kijana, kumpatia huyu kijana muonekano na maono ambayo ataweza kumfanikisha yeye maisha yake. Kufikia hapo, shukran.
Thank you. It's been a long session. I'd like to acknowledge and give a salute to you guys. You've been very supportive, and it's very important as media, we tend to acknowledge it. CVE can come to an end, but only if we are together. Unity is the best key. I'd like to acknowledge all the organizations which have made this festival very much livelihood, and we've also been educated a lot. And I'd also like to thank the media for the coverage, the likes of Al-Shifa Online TV and others. Congratulations, and also congratulations to you. And it's about time. I always say that accountability is a reflection of responsibility. It's always up to us to make a change for a better tomorrow. You can call me Daila Hamza, yeah? Yeah. Have a lovely evening, and thank you very, very much.